This is Caribbean News Desk. I'm Dennis Shibrol. In this edition, Jamaica's efforts to scrap appeals to the Caribbean Court of Justice may be challenged in court. Guyana's private sector cries out about smuggling from Suriname as a trade mission from Paramaribo heads to Georgetown. Montserrat not entirely prepared for a major earthquake. China's state-subsidized steel raises concerns in Latin America. And the Chinese authorities are looking for a man's penis cut off twice by his wife. Details coming up.
One Caribbean, one people, one nation. This is the same destiny. Too separated we are. As one, let's come together. One market economy. Caribbean is how it should be. Let's support. Carry on for Caribbean unity. It takes you. It takes me for Caribbean unity.
The opposition Jamaica Labour Party is signalling that someone may challenge the constitutionality of the island joining the appellate jurisdiction of the Caribbean Court of Justice, or CCJ. The country's parliament is continuing to debate three bills that, if passed by government's simple majority, would see the island scrapping Britain's Privy Council as the final court of appeal. The parliamentary opposition Jamaica Labour Party has said that the decision should be decided through a referendum. Of the 12 CCJ member states, only Guyana, Barbados and Belize have signed on to the court as their final court of appeal. Keisha Ann Slate reports from Kingston.
Jamaica's Attorney General Patrick Atkinson has said that there is no need for the island to go the route of a referendum to decide if the Caribbean Court of Justice should be its final court of appeal. Mr. Atkinson, who was contributing to the debate on the CCJ bills being debated in the country's House of Representatives, said a referendum would be a costly endeavor.
That in itself alone would cost between 1.2 billion and 1.5 billion. A referendum would only be advisory. We would still, after all of that, have to come back and go through the process of a two-thirds majority in either house.
Jamaica's Attorney General Patrick Atkinson. But in making his contribution, spokesman on justice from the island's opposition Jamaica Labour Party, Delroy Chuck, made it clear the opposition's stance on the CCJ. The opposition spokesman said it should be left up to the people to decide. He further added that, in his view, even if the bills are passed in both houses of Parliament, it will be challenged in the courts for being unconstitutional.
Now that these three bills are successfully passed in both houses, which is unlikely, that they will be successfully challenged in the courts as unconstitutional. And even, Mr. Speaker, if they were constitutional, the spectre of having the CCJ in Section 110 that can be changed by a simple majority makes these three bills quite worthless. These three bills, Mr. Speaker, are quite worthless and not worthy on the paper on which they were printed.
Jamaica's opposition spokesman on justice, Delroy Chuck. Keisha Ann Slate in Kingston, Jamaica for Caribbean News Desk.
The St. Kitts and Nevis government is building a second solar farm with the aim of reducing the Caribbean nation's dependence on fossil fuel. Government said on Wednesday that Taiwan is providing 55% of the funding for the project, with the rest coming from the St. Kitts Electricity Company. Prime Minister Denzel Douglas has remarked that with the construction of a second solar farm, the Twin Island Federation has taken a giant leap in its program for energy cost reduction and electricity cost reduction. The Prime Minister also hailed Taiwan's commitment to free us all from the fossil fuel reliance which has burdened so many countries for so very long, and to harness the power of the sun. St. Kitts and Nevis's first solar farm was commissioned in September 2013 and now generates electricity for the Robert L. Bradshaw International Airport. As a group of Surinamese private sector and government officials prepare to participate in a 3-day trade mission in Guyana, the Private Sector Commission of Guyana is concerned about smuggling. Chairman for Trade and Investment at the Private Sector Commission, Ramesh Duku, says products produced in Guyana and other CARICOM member states are facing unfair competition from goods smuggled from neighboring Suriname. He says that in many instances, higher quality products are imported into Suriname duty-free and then smuggled to Guyana, where they are sold at a cheaper price.
Guyana is at the bad end of the stick. Yeah, because in Suriname there's more access to concessionary importing from Europe. And they obviously have, in some sectors, there are superior goods that are obviously manufactured in Europe. And those goods find their way into Guyana, having originated from Europe. And that's the incentive. European goods coming into Guyana attract a high duty, unlike a CARICOM good. So I think we are not benefiting. And our manufacturers who manufacture similar goods may not be benefiting.
Mr. Duku says the major issue is lax customs enforcement on both sides of the border. He says Guyanese manufacturers are expected to ask customs officials from both countries hard questions. The 40 Surinamese business and government officials will be engaged in business-to-business meetings with their Guyanese counterparts during the January 15 to 17 trade mission. The Caribbean Association of Industry and Commerce will also be represented at the trade mission. As Haiti observes the 5th anniversary of the devastating 7.1 magnitude earthquake, a top official of Montserrat says that island is not fully prepared for an earthquake. Montserrat has had its share of disasters such as Hurricane Hugo in 1989 and the reactivation of the Sophia Hills volcano in 1995 that has since buried a significant part of the island. Director of the Disaster Management Coordination Agency, Billy Daru, has been telling Radio Montserrat that the quality of buildings has improved since Hurricane Hugo to withstand high winds. On the other hand, he says Montserrat is about 50% prepared for an earthquake.
I think we need to do much more than we're doing. We need to consider what our planning process is, our approvals for construction, for example, and not only buildings, but infrastructure, utilities, communication infrastructure, roads, jetties, etc. We also need to consider telling persons more about what earthquakes are, the risks involved, and of course what persons can do on their own to mitigate against an event like this. We cannot say it's inevitable, but it's likely that it will happen. That has happened in the past.
He hopes that building codes and laws will be put in place and enforced to ensure that structures are earthquake resistant as far as possible. Surinamese police have confirmed the arrest of a soldier in connection with a charred body of a female that was found on Saturday in a burning car. Devsur reported that a 35-year-old man has been charged with murder and manslaughter. It is not clear what his relationship was with the woman, who has been identified as 28-year-old Equindia Fernandez. She lived not far from where she was found dead in the burning vehicle. She had 2 children, one 8 and a 10-month-old toddler. The soldier's identity has not been released. The burning car was found on an unpaved road in northern Paramaribo on Saturday. Firefighters extinguished the flame and then discovered the charred remains of the female in the back seat. Police said early on that day that they suspected it is to be homicide and that a car was set ablaze to destroy evidence and confuse investigators. Police said its Capital Crimes Unit is cooperating with the military police in the investigation. Rising imports of cheaper steel from China's largely state-subsidized companies during the past year is posing a threat to the industry in Latin America. The Latin America Steel Association, known as Alacero, says that steel imports from China increased 65% in 2013-2014, posing a threat to the industry in the region. Alacero President Rafael Rubio says that Latin American steel producers' main concern is that these imports arrive under conditions of unfair competition that can be observed in the average price of Chinese products coming to Latin America, which is 14% lower than prices for the rest of the world. The situation is even worse in Central America, where the average price of Chinese steel imports is 20% below world prices, according to Rubio. Rubio says that Latin American steel makers are able to compete with Chinese companies on fair terms, but not when those companies have unlimited financial support from their government, which is the majority owner of those enterprises. The Latin America Steel Association official says that besides benefiting from subsidies, China's state companies resort to tactics such as dumping, that's selling below cost, to grab market share from domestic producers in export destination countries. The official says that China's government gives its companies an unfair advantage by supplying necessary infrastructure at no cost to the firms and providing subsidies in the form of below market prices for inputs such as electricity and coal. Additionally, Rubio said China's government keeps the country's currency undervalued to boost exports. The U.S. House of Representatives on Wednesday approved 2 amendments proposed by Republicans to overturn the executive action measures announced by President Barack Obama last November, whereby about 5 million illegal immigrants would temporarily avoid deportation. The House voted 237 to 190 to adopt an amendment to be attached to the bill to fund the budget for the Department of Homeland Security, which is tasked with carrying out the executive measures. Immediately thereafter, lawmakers voted 218 to 209 to approve another amendment to eliminate funding for the so-called Deferred Action Program. That's another executive decision by the President in 2012 that has prevented the deportation of hundreds of thousands of undocumented young people who have grown up in the United States after being taken there illegally by their parents. Republican House Speaker John Boehner insisted before that there is simply no alternative for Republicans, given that they, as they claim, Obama exceeded his authority to implement executive action when he took the immigration measures. However, more than 20 Republicans voted against the proposals, given that their districts have significant Latino populations. The bill provides some $39.7 billion in funding for security agencies, and if it is not implemented, the DHS, that's the Department of Homeland Security, will be without operating funds starting February 27. Despite the approval of the measures and their possible approval by the Senate, which starting this month will have a Republican majority, the President has warned that he will veto the bills if Congress ultimately adopts them. Conservatives in Congress, currently in the majority, have begun the new legislative session by attacking the unilateral action taken by Obama, claiming that the measures should have been implemented, if at all, by Congress. However, for more than a year, Republicans in Congress have been refusing to bring up to a vote comprehensive immigration reform that would permanently address the problems with the immigration system, and thus Obama elected to act on his own on the matter, as he says he's authorized to do. Chinese police have arrested a woman after she dismembered her husband's penis a second time and threw it out of the window of the hospital where he was admitted after she cut it the first time, following the discovery that he had been unfaithful. Fan Lung, father of 5 children, had used his wife's mobile phone to send erotic messages to his 21-year-old lover, Zhang Heng, according to the Chinese news portal Yang Xing. In a slip-up, Fan 32 forgot to sign out of the account he was using to send the messages, and his wife discovered his secret. In a state of fury, the wife, named Feng, used a pair of scissors to cut off her husband's reproductive organ while he was asleep. He was rushed to a hospital in the central province of Henan, where doctors reattached his member. However, Feng entered the hospital with a pair of scissors and cut it off a second time and threw it out of the window. Doctors and policemen unsuccessfully searched for the lost penis. Fan, who lost a considerable amount of blood, is reportedly in a stable condition after undergoing another operation, but remains emotionally distraught. Fan's lover, however, still plans to marry him, even though they cannot have children because, according to Zhang, he already has 5.
We are 15 states with a common goal, a a unified purpose to face the world. Enriching lives, empowering people, creating a strong economic region. No matter where you're from, no hassle, just freedom. When the business school of pleasure, we will benefit together. The CARICOM single market, good for you and me. The CARICOM single market, good for you and me. The CARICOM single market, good for you and me. Oh yeah!
And that's it for Caribbean News Desk for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dennis Shibrol.